So, welcome, beautiful souls. How are we doing out there? I always lead with that because it's quite a interesting cosmic soup that we're all running through right now. So, what I wanted to do and what's been rolling through my mind a lot today is how to really articulate what is going on and how we can move through this more consciously. And all my practice is always about through the body. That ultimately, our body is this pure, beautiful wisdom center that will show us our truth. Coming from a therapist, hands-on bodywork therapist for 17 years, and always seeing like pain as something that you need to get rid of, where you have this relationship with self as like against one another. Even cancer is a story of you have to battle and fight against cancer. And so what these narratives and these patterns have always been about how we are in conflict with ourselves and with our body. And like our body is some kind of nuisance to our life. And it's like even your bleeds as women, your menstrual cycle, that's seen as some form of curse. They call it the curse of the woman. I mean, what a load of bollocks that is. It's only seen or as an inconvenience is because we've tried to live in a patriarchal system, in a system that does not honor cycles of being a human, of being a woman, and has basically put us in 24/7 kind of activity. Whereas before, when we lived to the land, when we lived to earth, and we created our own food, before the Industrial Revolution, before the land grab, massive land grab from the common people, we would have lived in communities and created our own food. And then we got shoved into factories. I've diverted slightly here, but it'll all start to kind of understand at one point and merge and weave together. So that has taken people off the land, off the cycles, put in false lights that kept people on as productivity, which ultimately exhausts us. It exhausts men and it exhausts women, especially when we just see we have to plug up when we're on our bleed. And rather than honoring it, honoring the wisdom and the insight and the purity that is our bleed, it is like the most powerful wisdom state our women can be in when we truly honor that. But we've been told to be ashamed of it, to think it's dirty, to cut away from it, and literally just try and ignore it. Whereas this is where part of us have been suppressed and we've carried that suppression because we believe of that shame, that dirtiness. And actually, when we start to create time for ourselves and stillness and space to be in connection with our womb, with our heart, and be able to listen to that, there's so much that gets brought to us in terms of intelligence. And so we remember, and we remember who we truly are and the wisdom and the miracle that we are. And then we start to have more love and compassion for ourselves. The stories, the body dysmorphia, judgment, and all these different things start to come up, and you go, oh, right, that's really not my truth. When you get more and more into your body, this miraculous being that you are, we start to understand ourselves on a deeper level. We understand who we truly are. This whole journey as we are souls is to ultimately to know thyself. Yeshua said it, the oracles of Delphi said it. This is all about trying to really go through this journey of understanding who we truly are. And we live in an amnesia. We're only just on the surface of understanding and waking up to the power that we are. And many are still asleep. And that's where it is. Again, we don't hold judgment for those that are there either. And so what is going on right now? So I'll take you from a huge energetic, soul-based aspect, like universal aspect, and right down to your bones and blood, your physical. We'll go through the spiritual, the energetics, the mental, the emotional, and then the physical. What's going on for you individually and what's going on out in the collective. And so the collective is a really good mirror for us to see what's going on if we can just sit back and observe it. It's quite hard to observe ourselves because we're so in it, like the wood for the trees, okay? You can't necessarily call out your own bullshit, basically. You can see others, but you don't necessarily see yourself. And when we can look at the center stage of the world, we can look at it and go, what's underneath this? What's happening? What's energies? What's playing out? And so you can be more of a curious observer of that. It's much easier to do that, although still people are very stuck in that at the same time because we're wanted to be, because when you finally start to realize that you are the creator and the observer, because like it's proven that unless it's observed, does it exist? When you realize that and you become discerning of where you give your energy, what you give yourself time to listen to, so even if it's just on the radios in the background, what you're subliminally receiving all the time, even if you're not actually conscious of it, but also then what you give your emotions to from that reaction, from that fear, that narrative that you listen to, all of a sudden you're in panic, you're in helplessness, you're in hopelessness. All of a sudden, that's keeping you in the victim energy mode and keeping you powerless. The anxiety that comes from that, the fatigue and the burnout that comes from that. But when you realize that you are the creator, you are the observer, how you can become curious, how you can step out of the emotional vortex of things, how you can start to look at life more as a curious observer, like you're watching a movie play out, then the emotions don't get so involved. And then you can start seeing things from a higher perspective. Bring your heart into this process, the heart consciousness. You'll be able to see things from a different perspective. And that is the miracle in itself, how we perceive things. And I was literally just talking to a friend a moment ago about fear, and everything is about, we talk about, have to look at love, and is it unconditional love or is it fear that you're doing this? And then it's equal, we think fear is really bad because it's like, well, that's not good. We need to get rid of fear. But also there's an element of fear, of discernment, of like, is that safe to do that in this present moment? Should I put my hand to a dog that I don't know? Or do I keep my counsel and just keep it? So fear is an interesting one as well. And this is how you can think nothing is black and white. Nothing's light or dark, good or evil. Um, because there's another layer underneath that potentially. Okay, so I'll get to the chase of it all. So what we may well be seeing right out in the whole collective is a complete act of control through digital currency, through the war, through fuel, through food, through pharmacy, all these different things. We can look at it and go, right, there's an agenda to take control of the people, the masses. And people that are seeing that could equally be in fear of that or in fight of that, because ultimately that's not something that you want. And so, but the difference is that actually, we can't fight a system. This is what I've been shown from a personal perspective in terms of when there's darkness and different parts. You don't fight it because that still creates an energy of attachment to it. You can't fight it. So what's the point of fighting and feeding something that you don't actually want or desire to have? And so you realize for that negative to exist, so does the positive. It has to happen. There has to be happen. And you're in the center that can choose which way you want to go. So put your energy into what you do want to create. So the whole food crisis, say, for instance, all of a sudden you might start thinking, I want to create my own food. I need to have my own sovereignty. I need to be able to start planting my food. I want to create a community because we need to be self-sufficient and start looking after each other and look at the loneliness pandemic that we got out there. Well, if we're all outgrowing our own food and looking after ourselves, will there be that loneliness pandemic? Will we suddenly be subject to a system that wants to control or dictate to how much we pay or something? And then we're living on the land. Then we're living more consciously. Then we're not putting pesticides and herbicides and glyphosate and all this shit and chemicals that kill life into our bodies and think that that's okay. There's So, in terms of the darkness of how you can perceive that, thinking, right, I need to go and take action, that darkness can well be coming from a place of light to try to get you to wake the fuck up. Okay? To wake up out of our soul amnesia, to like consciousness isn't going to just be handed to us on a plate. It's just not going to happen. To claim your sovereignty as a soul and heart consciousness is not going to be just handed to you on a plate. You've got to go and work for it. You've got to go and earn it. You've got to go understand yourself. And you can't just do it in the head. You've got to do it in your entire body to find your truth, and know that your truth can change subject to your perspective. So it's never been stuck on anything either. And so I may have been losing you slightly there. I do apologize if I have, but it's just you have to, our minds and our heart have this capacity to take us out to the big picture, then come back to the little picture. It's like this micro, macro. This is the left and the right hemisphere. And so by having a center, this midbrain, your pineal gland, and with your heart consciousness, and then through your body and grounded, you have space and the ability to be able to look to the big and come back to the small. And then what the small does, how that affects the big, like the macro. So this concept of also knowing, well, what can little me do? Well, little me can do lots of things. Okay, little me can go and start growing their own food. They can start creating something. And so this then takes you out of that disempowerment. It takes you out of the victim loop, the victim perpetrator martyr loop. So you can make changes. It's just subject to how you choose to perceive things. And like I say, what looks like a dark agenda, there may well be light pushing that forwards to get us to wake up, like I say. It's like a Star Wars walls coming in. It's like you need to wake up to your sovereignty, to who you are as a soul and how powerful you are. And like I say, it won't get handed to you. You've got to wake up for it and do this work and the deep shadow work and the darkness but not fear it either. But we fear this work because we fear the judgment of this work. Because if all of a sudden you're going, well, one, we fear trauma. The first start is actually, if you've done this work, trauma, we jump out of our bodies to a degree because it's been too much. We haven't been able to process it. And so the body will just lock to it. And so a lot of people fear connecting into doing the trauma work because they fear being re-traumatized. But when you're doing it through your body, you're not being re-traumatized. Your body loves you. It's seeking reconnection through the language of pain and disease. It doesn't want to harm you. It loves you. It's trying to call you back to your truth, your power, your voice, your desires, your joy, your bliss, your abundance. It's trying to call you back, going, listen, this light that created you is within you. Let's return back to this. Let's get rid of these belief systems, this bullshit, this patterning and conditioning, come back to our truth so we can live in alignment and coherence. This pulse, expansion and contractions coming from unconditional love. That is what created you. And so everything that a body is trying to do, if we're not in the right job, if we're not living to purpose, if we're not in the right relationship, if we're not speaking our truth and our emotions and stuff, it's all being called up for us to process and to deal with. And so the body is never trying to harm you. And when you do this safely and in respect and love for your body, it will gently ease these layers for you. You don't go in like a game of operation. Again, let's just get the shit out. It doesn't do that. Your nervous system needs to be safe all of the time. And so when you do this work, when you connect into your body, when you connect into the somatics, your breath, and through the work that I guide people into, whether it's, personally like live or whether it's through meditations and things, this is getting you to tune in safely into your body, to start to recognize the power that you are. And that actually, that part of you that you fear, that trauma, that re-traumatizing, isn't the trauma itself. It's that part of you that got shut down, that didn't seem heard, valued, loved, hurt, betrayed. That part of you is locked within you, or it may be slightly outside of you. Sometimes a lot of us in the spiritual world can be like trying to live out in the good old lovely light because actually it's nicer there. So we've kind of like separated from ourselves. So I've even felt like my inner child was like a ghost, like an energetic vibration somewhere. She wasn't quite in me or with me, but it wasn't until I sorted my neural system out and she was able to feel safe back with me. And so this is like reconsolidation. It's like calling back all those little parts and fragments of self that we've lost in this lifetime and in previous lifetimes, where we gave away our power, where we believed that we were separate from the heart of source, where we believed that someone was more powerful than us, that we had to access our power through another medium, whether it's religion, whether it's with governments, all these aspects are being called back to us to reclaim back our power and our sovereignty, our will. This has a lot to do with our solar plexus at the moment. That's where I'm feeling that will center. Like, who am I? Where's my authority? Do I give it away? I mean, just the word authorities, they have authority over you. You need to claim back your power and your authority just through choice, through empowered choices and making those changes. So that's where we are. We're being called as a soul. And there'll be many different things that will happen. You'll see it in the collective what we're doing, but it'll also be in our own individual worlds as well. And it will be calling us to ask the question more, how is this happening for me rather than to me? To me, you're the victim. For me, you're the empowered. Okay. And that's the difference. And so you need to start changing the narrative and the way you talk to yourself and to become conscious of self and conscious of your patterns and the way you talk and your subconscious and your unconscious body. We've inherited so much. Our bodies, right to our bones and our DNA, and our DNA has been blocked by these trauma patterns and these belief systems, but we are able to alchemize them. We're about to get rid of this old carbon form of DNA and start to really activate it from a consciousness, a soul consciousness that runs through our spine, our cerebral spinal fluid. That is the pulse, the coherence that tries to call the body back as that one, that pulse, that light that created us in the first place when we let those ultimate primitive cells. We're coming back to that. And so, like I say, there'll be many on our external environment, big collective or our own environment that will be calling us to deal with this. Women, perimenopause, menopause, that will be another layer for us to be going through. So for women going through this menopause now, in these times, at this moment of time, it's really fucking powerful. But with that power can feel completely dysregulating if we're not conscious of ourselves, if we're not doing the self-mastery work and being curious of ourselves, because otherwise we'll be locked in to these belief systems and patterns and fears and attachments, and it's congesting the body. And so it'll break out in different places of pain, discomfort, disease, mental health, anxiety, because it's the body is going to trying to purge all this. But if our heart's blocked, if we're not conscious, it will get tight in all different places. And we have to learn that we are purging and receiving. So the body's again isn't trying to harm you, it's trying to call you back to your truth. So, and then discernment is huge for this one. This is about boundaries. This is where I see the divine masculine that comes in. We talk about the divine feminine rising, but we need the divine masculine to come in. And it's not to protect, it's to give discernment and it's to give presence. Because if you recognize that we're moving up to a higher frequency of love, you don't need protection when you're already living in love. So therefore, the divine masculine is about actually discernment. What is true, what is not. It gives a holding for the feminine, like the earth gives the holding for the water to flow. Okay, otherwise it'd just be mud. So this is where we are all being called in, whether you're male or female, to bring a union of the feminine and the masculine. And it's like a beautiful, the DNA helix, that winding together, that will bring in this union and this wisdom. And I was at a networking thing the other day, and it was just a lot of kind of tongue in cheek, like men, this, men, and it's that. And I was like, this is really negative about men. I mean, I know men can be twats. I know that. Not all men, obviously, I love men, but some are. Let's face it, everything that we're seeing in the manosphere and everything else like that. But there's some beautiful ones out there as well. And actually, when you're in that kind of negative push away protection, you're blocking your love. You're blocking that higher masculine to be able to come in. So, but I have compassion for that because this is what's gone on for thousands of years. But we need to just be able to see that pattern, have compassion for it, and then to be able to release it through the whole processing, which is what we do with the body. And then the other thing that's been coming up is Judgment Day. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, so Yeshua came through in a meditation. It was Judgment Day. I was like, oh, that sounds a bit heavy. But it's not in a negative way. It would be if you chose to make it negative, obviously. Again, discernment, choice, perspective. So Judgment Day, what was shown to me is like, it was actually like presenting and showing you as a soul. You are here on soul, on earth, soul school. You're in earth school, basically. And when you start to realize that's what you are and you have been all these lifetimes, and everybody else is, it's just a play. It's just you're coming here to learn things. And so when you carry shame and guilt and fear and all these layers that we may have inherited, we may well have been the perpetrator in a previous life, but now we've become a victim in this one. And so we're in a loop, a karmic loop, because somewhere along the lines we don't think we're worthy of love, we're worthy of joy, we're worthy of happiness, we're worthy of abundance, because we're carrying this low vibration of probably shame and guilt. But when you come to this place of judgment, which like Yeshua was holding, and I think there's a biblical thing that's really quite okay, so got interrupted by beautiful children just then. So Judgment Day, ultimately, is not to be feared. It's like you're brought to a threshold as a soul, as a human being, and to kind of go, to become conscious that you are a soul in a school, and to be able to allow forgiveness. Forgiveness is the big thing that Yeshua brings, like the sword of truth, but he also empowers the whole energy that is forgiveness. And forgiveness is like a sword. It literally just cuts through any karma, any cords, any fears, any loops of distortion that have been going on, and just cuts you free. It's like self-liberation. And so this, when you can forgive yourself, even if you don't know what you're forgiving, when you can really tune into who you are as a soul and recognize that you're always light, and that you may recognize that you've had patterns of fear running the show, the patterns of protection, the patterns of betrayal, of hate and anger, and to know that you may well have lived in this lifetime and previous lifetimes like that, and to just know that you got caught in that loop, and you hold compassion for yourself. When you start to really feel that and know that you are this pure light, you can then forgive. And they'll do the prayer, the Honopololo prayer, which is, I forgive you. Please forgive me. I'm sorry. I love you. Thank you. And you repeat that, and that whole essence, and you really allow yourself and your heart to feel that. It sets you free. And we're here to be sovereign beings, to remember that. And forgiveness is huge. And you need compassion, like your heart and intelligence, like the prefrontal cortex and your heart and the neurons, and to be able to comprehend, to give compassion to what may have happened, or to yourself or to others, and to realize that that energy, that event happened because of fear, because the illusion of separation was very real for that person, that event. And to know that we aren't and never have been separate from source, yet we believe we are, and we've carried on that loop and that pattern, and as systems that incubate that make it even more so. Like, you just got to look at religion, that you access heart source through this. You access heart source from your heart and through the connection to earth, and that is the truth, that is life, not the systems, the laws, this that have been caked on top of. And so that will be crumbling. We will be seeing the systems crumbling, the chaos that we're seeing, whether it's our own inner world or the outer world. It's the old patterns, the old versions of self, the old identities, the ego, the patterns that aren't serving anymore are released. And this is why doing this body work is so important, because this is about finding your inner safety. Even when it feels like it's your own storm, how can you keep getting deeper and deeper into your body to find that peace, to find that holding, to become the eye of your own storm at times? And that is from being present. It's from being present in your heart and being grounded in that. And in that moment, you find your peace. You may find gratitude. You may find clarity. It's all these different parts that we'll find within ourselves when we give ourselves that permission to be still, our permission to find love, joy, and peace and abundance, to know that we are it. And this is a journey of remembrance of that. And actually, the remembrance of this wholeness of who we are breaks away these old. It's like the light's growing within you, and therefore the old skins, the old patterns, the old shields are crumbling. They're falling away from you too. But that will feel really dysregulating. Again, like I said, if you're not practicing or knowing that this is happening for you, not to you. And so your body's very good at protecting you, stopping you from going into places where you really must not go. So, you may feel like your body's blocking you, maybe getting anxiety that you don't want to go anywhere, and like closing down and just panic attacks and things. And what this is doing is your body's trying to call you to come in, to deal with the trauma, to deal with these shadows that we think of ourselves, but do it from a place of curiosity, a place of compassion and love and acceptance. And we go through that whole process of emotional processing like we would our food. We have to feel the rage. We have to feel that anger. We don't project it, but we have to feel that, because it's the voice saying, I deserve better. That's why little women hit that menopausal time and all of a sudden she ain't taking no shit no more. It's just like, fuck off. I am not doing that. That just reminded me of a really cool joke. What do the chickens say? Angry chickens say, fuck off. Anyway, diverting slightly, but it's like all of a sudden, I'm not going to be the peacekeeper. I'm not going to sacrifice my inner peace to keep the peace. I'm not going to be the martyr, the clapped out Cinderella anymore. Fuck no. Like, yes, yes, this is brilliant. This is powerful. This is what you want. This is what you need. But it will feel like all of a sudden you're knocking down relationships and that, but you're finding your boundaries. You're finding your voice. And that's what leads me beautifully on, is that your yoni and your voice are one of the same thing. They're so intricately exactly the same. They are connected. To be able to have greater bliss and orgasms and stuff, you need to open up that channel between yoni, womb, heart, and voice. And this is your feminine. This is the energy that's coming up. And for the men that are listening here, you'll experience this. It's like how you can find that bliss without having just to release it out from your body, how you can hold that energy and bring it up. I think that's quite a difference. Obviously, not being male, I can't quite explain what it feels like to have an orgasm, but I would say that it's more of a release outwards. Whereas a woman, it's actually a lot to do with the brain having an orgasm. And so it has to, funny how I go from chicken joke to this, but this is me. But how we have an orgasm more from the brain. And so the disconnection from yoni, womb, heart, and head comes a lot from shame, guilt, not being able to express our desires, not thinking we're worthy of what we did, all these aspects. And so as a woman steps into her wise woman stage, it's this process, she's about opening, finding her voice, finding her joy, her pleasure, and bringing all of this learnt together, her trauma, her suffering, all of this, and alchemizing it to her goal, to her wisdom. This is the wise woman stage, and our womb is so important with this. And as I was saying, for men, I imagine a lot of the time that energy release comes outwards. It's more of like a draining out, literally like from ejaculation. But it's for women, it's more like an energy coming up. So it's like a rejuvenation. It's like a clearing out of the whole neural system. And so for men, if you could like, it's like harnessing that energy, but bringing it inwards, then you're kind of calling up the Shashami channel, the Kundalini. Then you're able to harness this feminine, this energy, which is, again, I feel that's where the sacred union of the masculine and feminine come to. And this where your wisdom center gets awakened. Because if you hold those centers from to pineal gland and perineum, you're calling in the connection of both masculine and feminine. These 2 points are like where the masculine and feminine meet. And then they hold the container to allow the cerebral spinal fluid to move through. And so using self-pleasure, using sacred dance, using getting into the body, this is all about awakening our power. And it's so interesting how religion and systems have shamed that, because that's actually your power right there. But it's also been misused too. And what we're seeing in the divide between male and female as well. You know, we talk about the patriarchal system and how it has disserved women, but it also has with men, because it's cut them off from the feminine as well. It's cut them off from earth, cut them off from women. Even though they probably don't see them as abused as women as obvious, there is that abuse from men too. Because they've been told they've got to be a certain way. They've been fed a different version of what actually divine masculine is. And we are in this journey of really understanding that and discerning in the truth of that. So that kind of gives you a whole kind of perspective of what we are. We're coming here as souls to remember, to no longer judge ourselves or others, to hold compassion, to create forgiveness, not to allow anything to happen again. That's the difference. That's the gold. It's like getting a virus. You get the T cells and the B cells. So if you come across that virus again, you don't get sick. The emotional intelligence is about this whole process that you don't keep repeating the cycle. So forgiveness is the cutting cords of it all. So it's the forgiving of the unforgivable, not to be, forgivable of the unforgivable. It's the acceptance of the unacceptable, not to be accepted again. So this is what we are having to learn. And that becomes our gold. It becomes like a foundation upon which humanity needs to step on to shift and move away from where humanity has gone to. It's like, weirdly, as a soul, we've literally been here seeing how the depths of what humanity can go to, the darkest points, and how we, like a lotus flower of enlightenment, can come from that deepest, darkest depth and still rise up through it all, keep its roots connected to it, because weirdly enough, it keeps it alive, but this most purest flower arises from it all. This is soul enlightenment. And it isn't about avoidance. It isn't about going off and just being love and light. This is about really true embodiment. You're not going to float off this mortal coil and just, get beamed up by aliens, or, oh, Judgment Day, oh, you've done all right, you can go. Oh no, you've been an asshole, you can stay. It's not going to be that. This is about like our own judgment of self, our own conscious choices, how we move through that, and how we go deep into our bodies, into our blood, into our bones, our DNA, how we can start to alchemize, get rid of the trauma, but use the trauma as our gold, as our insight and our wisdom, that foundation, like our T cells and our B cells for viruses, and then how we shift and awaken our DNA from a crystallized structure, from this unity of love, and recognizing that we are all one. Because we are all one. We've all come from the same source of light. If you look at every single cell in our body through the mitochondria, which is inherited by the mother lineage, not the father, the mother lineage, the feminine line, which kind of coordinates what our DNA does and how it expresses itself, is light. So micro, macro, we've gone right down to the teeny, little bit of bacteria that functions our whole entire being and how our DNA expresses itself. And through that is light. And all of a sudden we're in this macrocosm. Like, oh my God, we are all light. Yes, we are all light. And we're all interconnected. And the more shit we serve others, the more we're returning it. And so actually, we need to start to learn and understand that on a higher level, and how we make conscious choices and how we show up in the world. And to know that because you are that powerful light and you're all connected, you have the power to be the change. So you don't have to be the disempowered person anymore. Because actually, when you change, your inner world, you're affecting the whole outer collective from your radiance, from you being peace and joy and love and bliss. That's how you do it. You're not here to save the world by big gestures. Some might be doing a bit more, but just by doing your own inner work will be enough to make those shifts, that tipping point that we are needing as humanity, in which we are exceptionally close at. We are literally, you only need 3% consciousness to tip, and we are pretty much there. In fact, if not even more. So it's happening. It's happening for us, not to us. And the more we can wake up and be able to see it from a higher perspective, the greater the shift and transformation we will be able to make. So you will be called, the ones that have been doing this work, you will find, I think, from this full moon in Scorpio, as I record this one, this will be that point where we can just move through those blocks that have felt like we couldn't ever get to where we're trying to get to. There's always felt like there's something sort of holding us back or not being able to get through. I think when you're in a complete alignment, you're just going to go for it very soon. When we've been in resistance or we're not being truthful to ourselves, that will be coming up for us. When we've given away our power, we've given our authority away, that will come up for us. Not to harm us, it's trying to just teach us and for us to learn from it. And then there'll be ones that just aren't aware of this, and I'd imagine will struggle because they can't think that there's any other way out of it. There's no other choice, which fear has you believing there's no other choice. But that isn't the truth. And so the more compassion we can give ourselves, the more compassion we can give others, the more consciousness that we can bring into this collective and embody it and ground it into our body, we are creating a wave. We're creating shifts, we're creating changes. And you'll find some will do that, like I say, what we call light workers, where you think, class more spiritual or conscious doing this. But there'll also be other people that wouldn't even put that on them as a person, but they'll be doing conscious work. They'll be in places that want to make big changes, that want to take down these systems, the ones that want to show the injustice, the inequality, and there'll be many like doing that, bringing conscious light and into these systems. So you've got people doing earth work, grounding it, doing this work, but then there's also people that don't even think about that, but they're bringing consciousness into the practices, into these corporations, into these places that are actually will crumble. They're like taking down these little structures. So everyone is playing a part, everyone's playing a role, and there's no one better than thou, no more higher than thou. And when people come into spirituality, you often think you're better than the other. You're not. Just because you might think you can see things differently doesn't mean that you're better or you're more advanced. It's as soon as you think like that, you're thinking separation. So you're not actually as conscious. So and don't judge yourself for having those thoughts, because that's totally normal, because there'll always be these parts of dark and light to try and find what your truth is. The ego will always try and mirror us back to our true self. But it's just be able to recognize that the mirror is doing that and it's not your truth. Oh, it's all good fun. Anyway, and so you can't do this in your head. You can't do it in your head alone. You'll ping pong in there all day long and get effing anywhere. You have to be in your body. You've got to be in your body. This is why we're being graced with the beautiful body that we are, with the intelligence that's already in there, and the light that created us in there is still in there. And this is about connecting into that through breath work, through stillness, through connection, through meditation, through body work, just for sensuality, connecting to your somatic skin, all of that juiciness to be able to really become conscious. And the work that I offer, the work that I show, is getting you to realize the amazing beauty that you are. And, I'm being shown right now that, your bones and how you can integrate an intention to your bones to hold this higher frequency. And then when you're off walking or running, you're activating that new frequency because it's piezoelectricity. So you're creating. So if you tune in consciously what you want to radiate out, and then you're out there walking, and those conscious steps that you're making can be that radiance that you're shifting to change, and you change it in the dynamics in your body. So you may well need a gin and tonic after this one. I have gone quite deep. I have been very truthful to how I see things. And if you've listened this far, there'll be an essence of something to resonate with for you. And even if this is all new to you, just know that you have a choice. And there's always a way, should you choose there to be one. And know that your body loves you. That even it feels so separated from it right now. It loves you and it wants the best for you. And the best place to start is always in your heart. Okay. So if this resonates, reach out. I have been for about 6 years now creating content, I believe, for this moment, for this, what we're going to happen is now. When things start to look like the surfaces are falling down, it's like, well, how do I navigate this void? And it's always going to be through your body. Okay, your inner safety. So lots of love. Thank you for listening, and sending out deep love and compassion out to you. All right, take care.